back, everybody, to the Podecito podcast. I am your host, Surreal469. Thank you for joining me on this journey through our collective favorite show. Of course, I'm talking about the incomparable Las Vegas. We are up to 12 episodes. 12th episode of season 1. This 12th episode of season 1 just happened to land on our laps on 1/12, January 12th. See, season 1, episode 12, month 1, day 12. Look at that. It's almost like it was meant to be. It's synchronicitous. Is that a word? It is now. This is Hellraisers and Heartbreakers, folks. It's one of my favorite episodes. This one was an early classic, and we're going to get into all the reasons why. There are a ton of notes. We've got a lot to get through, so let's plow ahead with the technical stuff. It was directed by, of course, the incomparable Timothy Busfield, which I talked about before. Written by Gary Scott Thompson, Matt Piken, and Michael Byrne. We start off immediately with a music cue. We're going to have a lot of music cues this episode because we have a very special musical guest. Some very special musical guests, actually. The very first song that we hear, if you're watching the original version, don't ask me how I found the original version, because I won't. It'll be one of those Ed moments. You have the original version? No, I don't have the original version. The song is "You Can't Take the Honky Tonk Out of the Girl" by our very special musical guests, Brooks and Dunn, on the original version. If you're watching on the DVD, the song is "24 Thorns" by Jamie Dunlap and Scotty Nicoli. And the music on the Amazon and Peacock version is "She Used to Love the Devil Out of Me" by Wayne Perry and Friends. So we have 3 different versions. Now, the original version, if you can find the original version, I don't know how you would find the original version. All the musical cues are by Brooks and Dunn. We see all the different changes, and we'll come across those when we come across those. But the very first thing we see as we get into it is Hellraisers and Heartbreakers, the title of this episode. Apparently, that's some sort of event that's happening at the Montecito. I'm guessing it's Brooks and Dunn's concert tour right here, and we're going to see Brooks and Dunn for the very first time. They're the very first people that we see say a line outside of the dealer at the craps table. Let's talk just briefly about Brooks and Dunn. They are, of course, country music legends. I wasn't even into country music, and I knew about Brooks and Dunn when they got big. It's Ronnie Dunn and Kix Brooks. Ronnie Dunn really doesn't have much of an IMDb. He's just doing music and making appearances as himself on like award shows and shows like this. Kix Brooks, on the other hand, decided he was going to venture off into acting a little bit, and I can understand why watching this episode. Huge personality, very good on camera. He's done a couple of things. His first credited role as an actor was in Born Wild as Wade Lachlan. He's done a couple other, usually straight to cable or movie stuff. His last role that you could see him in recently was he started doing the Christmas circuit. Yes, he did, with Kimberly Williams Paisley, wife of Brad Paisley. Winona Judd, look at that. A Nashville Christmas Carol. He plays the spirit of Christmas Past in that TV movie. That's Kix Brooks. Both of them are amazing on this show, and you see their personality straight away. So Brooks and Dunn are at the craps table, and wouldn't you know who passes by Delinda DeLine? And wouldn't you know, Brooks and Dunn know who Delinda DeLine is. Now let's stop here for a second before we go much further. Brooks and Dunn in this episode, one of the things that makes them so great in this episode is that they don't just show up. Like, we've seen a couple times where celebrities know some of the cast and the crew of the Montecito. Brooks and Dunn almost feel like family when they walk in to the set of Las Vegas. And there's a good reason for that, because on the DVD commentary, and some of my notes come from the DVD commentary. Some of my notes for this episode come from all sorts of different places, now including the DVD commentary. Brooks and Dunn were big fans of the show. They asked to be on the show. They're such big fans, I imagine it felt like they already knew the cast members, which is why when they show up on set and they play themselves, they seem to know the cast members. And it works amazingly well. So they already know Delinda. Delinda comes in, she blows on the dice, which we've talked about before is a thing that cannot happen anymore in Vegas. That is a shame. You pretty much just have to pick the dice up and throw them. So even though Las Vegas has taken the fun out of Las Vegas, on the show Las Vegas, you can still do stuff like have a beautiful girl blow on the dice for luck. And not only does she blow on the dice for luck, they go ahead and up their bets and double it up. And with that blow of the dice starts this episode's version of Montecito Magic. You can even hear the chime when she does it.
Whoa! Hey, come here. You gotta blow on these dice. Come here.
Sure thing, cowboy.
Lady luck.
Because Brooks and Dunn will get used to them sitting at that craps table. That's exactly where they'll be. You know, another little bit of Montecito magic is Mary Connell every time she's on screen. We're talking, of course, about Nikki Cox. She runs into Richie Phillips. He's a comedian that is going to be playing at the Montecito this weekend. We're going to be seeing a lot of him. We'll come to him in a little bit. Before we get to the comedian Richie Phillips, we see a beautiful woman that we pause on for a second as we whoosh by her. I wonder if there's a reason for that. We whoosh by her to see Sam talking to an older gentleman who can't seem to get any of his stay comped by Sam, and we assume that he already has before. This man is an actor by the name of Dan Desmond, and he plays one of Sam's oldest clients who didn't have the best of luck before and is trying to turn it around, but Sam is not helping him. Dan Desmond has been a working actor for a while. His first credited role was in The Telltale Heart in 1971. That was a short, and he played a police officer. He's done a lot of those kinds of roles. Police officers, judge, a couple teachers, mostly police officers, and like the occasional stranger guy on the street, sergeant, counselor, that kind of stuff. He did this episode of Las Vegas. His name, even though not spoken, is Charlie Parsons. He did this one episode, and the most recent thing you have seen him in was a miniseries with Reese Witherspoon and Kerry Washington called Little Fires Everywhere, where he played, again, a judge for 2 episodes of that miniseries. That's Dan Desmond. Charlie Parsons, unfortunately, is not having the best of times. He says his business is picked back up, but Sam is cutting him off. She is not comping his room.
Sam, I was one of your first clients. You cornered me at the Gold Coast. You remember? Heck, you were wearing jeans back then.
As if that's some sort of indication of stage that she is in as a casino host. I imagine it probably, maybe it is. Maybe it's one of those things where, you know, the more casual the outfit, the less professional you look, and you want to look more professional in that kind of role, especially back then. I don't know, casino hosts, I haven't seen really any representation of casino hosts in a while. So, since Las Vegas. So I don't know what their style is right now. Back then, I would imagine that is, in fact, a little bit of a knock on what Sam was versus where she is now. I knew you win. And Sam, to continue to paraphrase one of my favorite plays, Ain't Misbehaving, I know you knew me win, but forget it. And Sam says that she can only comp his food, and that's it. And the guy he's not crying, but he's definitely not happy with the thing that the way that Sam has played him a little bit here, and he's going to slink off. Now, I imagine he's not going to... if I were him at this point, I would just kind of leave the Montecito, because at the very least, or leave Vegas, because that's terrible luck to start off with, and we're never going to see Charlie Parsons again. He's not going to get Montecito magic. What that scene is going to do is going to carry over into Sam for the rest of the episode. So, yeah, if I were Charlie Parsons, I'd just take off. I'd just like, keep your food comps. We've seen the Montecito in the last couple episodes really start to put the hammer down. Like, looking back on this, like, they're really tightening up around here. I wonder if that's reflection on Brunson and his new ownership. But one thing I do want to note about that scene is that he did say, and here's where, and I could see that here's the thing. When Sam walks away, you can see her facial expression changes, and we'll see that it actually did affect her, that little scene. And I think what really affected him, or her, was when he said,
Sam, I thought we were friends.
I'm sorry.
Here's the thing, Charlie Parsons. If you're in a business, you should know how business relationships are different than friendship relationships, and especially when you're dealing with something like a casino, right? It's not, that line is one that can be crossed in business. You can definitely become friends with people that you do business with. But if you're continuing to do business with them, that's always that caveat that it's primarily business. You know what I mean? So Charlie Parsons kind of should have known that, but at the same time, it's still ouch. Enter Alec Baldwin as Jack Keller alongside a still on crutches Danny McCoy. This is the episode of guest stars who really loved the show because, again, according to the DVD commentary, Alec Baldwin, along with Brooks and Dunn, was also a major fan of the show and asked specifically to come on and do the show, especially since he would get to work with James Caan, who up until that point, they were only kind of like occasional, casual, socially knew each other. But he apparently had a ball doing this, so did James Caan, and that is why he was invited back to do another episode, which is why Alec Baldwin is not up for very special guest star of this episode. I know he should be. He steals it. He's fantastic in this episode. However, I submit that Brooks and Dunn, for my money, really do take it in this episode. In any event, we're not going there. We're going back to Alec Baldwin, and Baldwin is there to update the system in the Montecito. He said they've already updated every other casino that the Montecito group and or Brunson holds, and the last stop was the Montecito here in Las Vegas, and you could tell that there's a lot of fun in this episode from the very beginning. Oh, wait a minute, there's a robbery. People jumping out of a armored car and a couple people rolling underneath there. What's happening here? Wait a minute. It's the very opening of the scene, and they're jumping and going through vents, and that stunt person has a interesting walk away, or at least crawl away, and they're crawling underneath, and we get a mini whoosh in the vents. Pay attention to these vents. We're going to see them next week. But we get a whoosh. And here's a good thing about this episode. You can see them trying to be as creative as possible with the sets that they have. Again, I ranted last episode about them constantly using the exact same hallway. I actually don't think they used the hallway in this episode. I think they laid off the hallway in this episode. We get a lot of casino floor. We get a vault. We get the surveillance area. They are doing a lot with the little bit of set that they have to work with. And that includes the ventilation system that we just saw almost get infiltrated. Not almost, did get infiltrated. Jack Keller, a.k.a. Alec Baldwin, is praising the accolades of his new system and how he and Danny are going to be guarding the gift shop soon once stuff like this gets acclimated, and they're in the vault. There's only 2 people trying to knock off the Montecito vault. Meanwhile, they're stopped by 5 people, 2 guys with guns. And wait a minute.
So I guess our little security system works.
Nessa?
Black is very slimming on you, my friend.
Well, give us a kiss then.
Danny is flabbergasted, as are we, as we watch this and we shoot to the intro. What was that? Coming back from the intro, we see Jack Keller espousing the qualities of going digital as opposed to analog tape. And in the DVD commentary, we hear GST admit that a lot of casinos back then were still on analog tape, like I mentioned before, because I had done this too. See, I have a little experience myself. So yes, that they were still on analog tape, and the Keller system, the Jack Keller system, is going to bring them into the 21st century and upgrade everything in the Montecito. Now, by this point, Ed already knows this. This is really just for the audience. Ed already knows this because Jack Keller's there. They're already updating the system, and Brunson wants it. So we're already we are caught up to where everybody else is. And we also get just a little bit of exposition about the history with Jack Keller and Ed and how they may have had some CIA history together. And Danny asked specifically...
We worked together. In Vegas? No, not in Vegas.
So every time I ask a question like this, you're just gonna...
And Ed just gives him the 1,000-yard stare again. So yes, Danny is still going to get treated at least a little bit like Jamoke.
And I can use those words too if I have to.
While asking about Ed's past. But we, as the audience, are going to find out a little bit more, and we're going to find out a little bit more later. Meanwhile, Danny's going to take the schematics and try to look them over to see if there's any problems with Jack's system. Now, he probably should have done this before Jack came through, but we'll just say he was busy. Meanwhile, we shoot to Mary and Richie Phillips, a.k.a. the Portland Dangler. Before we find out what the Portland Dangler is, we need to find out who the Portland Dangler is. I, of course, am talking about the actor whose name is Craig Gass. Now, Craig is, in fact, a real-life comedian. Craig, along with being a great comedian and an actor, is also a tremendous impressionist. Now, how did he become a tremendous impressionist? Well, apparently he was born into a deaf family. His mother, father, and sister were all completely deaf. So instead of learning how to speak from his parents, he watched TV. And I got to tell you, that's very similar to how I got so good with my Ed impression. Like, my Ed, I think his Ed impression is probably second to my Ed, well, probably third to James Caan's Ed impression, and second, which is second to my Ed impression. But he got his impersonation skills from watching TV. He's been in a couple things. He's been in the original Law and Order for an episode. That's where he got his first acting credit. He then, a couple years later, got this episode of Las Vegas, his one and only. And since then, the last couple things that you've seen him in was a short in 2019 called Cash Only, where he played Chuck, or you heard him in American Dad for an episode where he did a voice, or you saw him in King of Queens in 2004 for an episode, or you've seen him in his comedy as he tours across the country. He's still currently doing comedy. Go check him out because he is still funny. So Mary is asking about the backstory of the Portland Dangler. If you look up what the Portland Dangler is, yes, it's in the Urban Dictionary, probably tied directly to this.
Richie, there is something I have to talk to you about.
The Portland Dangler?
You seem so normal, especially for a comedian.
You know what? It just sort of happened one night. I was on stage in Portland, Oregon, and there was this lady that was singing ringside. And she was complaining to this poor waitress about her vodka tonic, about how it was vodka on the bottom and tonic on top, and how they hadn't stirred it properly. And she just wouldn't shut up about this vodka tonic. So I got down there and I stirred it for her.
With your...
Yeah, and the Portland Dangler was born.
Mary is trying to stop him from doing it because of Big Ed's sensitivities. Brooks and Dunn are still winning at the craps table. Now, as you see, Brooks and Dunn are still winning at the craps table, and as you see them walking through the small area of the casino that they're walking through, if you watch it, you'll notice they walk past a blacked out area of the casino. Now, that might sometimes happen in real life. You know, not everything is set up, tables are closed, etc. But I don't think, looking back, I don't know if I've ever really seen completely like blacked out areas of a casino. I don't think they want completely blacked out areas of a casino. That way you can't see what's over there. Like if a room is closed, that's one thing. But of the actual casino floor, tables may be closed, sure. And maybe the lights, I don't even know that they necessarily dim the lights, like, because the lights are just there, right? But that's done here because they're still in the throes of not having the entire casino built. They're still working on a small stage. The Dangler and Mary are walking around a small area of the casino floor because they've got a small area to work with. Now, again, I was complaining about them going through that exact same hallway all the time. This is better. This is better. This is a better choice by Timothy Busfield, and here's why. There's more to see. Visually on screen, there's more to look at. That hallway, no matter how you dress it up, always looks like the hallway. Here, Timothy Busfield is doing his best to make it seem like we're going through a much larger area than we actually are. And that we're covering a lot more space than we actually are. In reality, they're probably 20 square yards that we're really covering here. Like, we're not doing a whole ton. Like, maybe more than 20 yards. At least, it's certainly less than a football field. I'll give it, probably less than half. That's why I'm saying 20. Less than half of a football field, which is 50 yards. Less than half of a football field that they're covering here. I would imagine it's got to be less than that. It's got to be, looking at it and looking closely at it the way I am on this particular shot, it might be 20. It's a very small area that they're covering, but it doesn't look like that, and that's a credit to TV director mastermind himself, almost puppet master, Timothy Busfield. In any event, I said it again, take your shot and don't dangle it. Don't stir it. The limes will kill you. But they're covering a small area. Brooks and Dunn are still winning at the craps table, but also he can't do the dangler in the casino. Because if he does the dangler in the casino,
it's the last drink you'd ever stir.
And that is not a threat. That's a promise. But at the same time, Dangler does have a point. Because people are coming to see him. And people are coming to see him do that. That really is kind of like booking Carrot Top and then telling him, okay, so you're going to talk about airplane food, right? No props, no nothing. Don't bring any props on stage. So we shoot over to the Bellicera, which is another spot we're going to be seeing a lot of. And Danny didn't actually want to look at the schematics. He wanted Mike to look at the schematics, which is fine because you get Mike in this episode. This is an episode where everybody pitches in. I love the episodes where everybody pitches in. Going back to the casino floor, or at least Danny was about to probably go back to the casino floor or surveillance, he spots Sam at the bar. As we shoot over to Sam at the bar, musical cue here. We hear Mama Don't Get Dressed Up for Nothing, again by Brooks and Dunn on the original version. On the DVD version, you're hearing a production song. On Amazon and Peacock, you're hearing a song called Mrs. Doobie, spelled out Mrs. M-I-S-S-U-S, by Ross Hardy and Brian White. And we'll get to these songs in a second. This is definitely a production song. But it's one that they actually licensed and have a video on YouTube you can listen to. So Sam is at the bar. She's been drinking, and she is feeling a little bit down, and she asks Danny what's wrong with her. And Danny's trying to sober her up, and Sam starts spilling her guts about how she had to pull the plug on Charlie Parsons. Didn't really bother me. Yes, it did. Don't lie, Sam. Yes, it did. You read all over her face. And Danny has to assure her that it's her job, unfortunately, but it made her rethink her life because of, again, probably what he said, that he knew her when. And look at her now, making these cutthroat decisions, etc. Now she's spilling her heart out to Danny, which is something that caught James Caan off guard. He said very specifically that he had a conversation with Gary Scott Thompson, and he asked him, please, this guy's getting all the girls, right? Like, why is he, this Danny guy, he's getting all the girls? And Gary Scott Thompson just kind of laughed it off, but it's true. Like, it's true. Danny, he's the sexiest sex symbol of all the sex symbols in the sexiest city of all the sexy cities, Las Vegas. No woman can resist him. Even Loretta, the swizzle stick lady, no woman can resist the charms of Danny McCoy. And that includes Sam. But it's going to go further than just this little drunk flirtation here at the bar. Stick with me, because Sam is not feeling in her right mind. She says,
I push people away. I'm not sweet.
And listen, up to this point, her brand of sweetness is not sugary sweet, but I wouldn't say that she's not sweet. She's not Mary. Mary is sugary sweet. She's not even spicy. I would say Delinda is like spicy sweet. She's like a Red Hot. She's not sophisticated sweet, like, but you know, she's not like Marsha / Nessa in her sweetness, but it's not non-existent. It's just buried. And leave it up to the sexiest sex symbol of all the sex symbols, Danny McCoy, to bring it out of her, even by not even doing anything other than just listening to her talk for a minute and just trying to get her upstairs so that she can sleep off whatever it is she's been drinking here at the Bellicera. And she's so drunk she forgot her cell phone. Sam never forgets her cell phone, but she's so drunk she forgot her cell phone almost. And Danny had to stop her. And now she's cut. This you can tell she's super drunk because she cuddles up to Danny and says,
I mean, would you like to get to know me better outside of work?
You're never outside of work. You live at work, Sam. But that's she's got. You ever, fellas? You know what I'm talking about when I talk about your girl goes out for girls' night and they have the box wine and they come home and they give you that look. Sam is in that mode. She's in that zone right now, and Danny is center mass of that zone right now. But she's so drunk, she forgot her cell phone almost. She doesn't know which way her hotel room is, but Danny does, and he escorts her up. Meanwhile, we go back to the craps table, and wouldn't you know it, Brooks and Dunn are up. Brooks and Dunn are winning. Roll with it, Slim. And they win again. Now, here's what we have to say about Brooks and Dunn as we are about to see Nessa and Jack Keller and Ed come into frame. Brooks and Dunn, such fans of the show, and such fans of everyone on the show, they shipped an electric scooter to James Caan's house. Now, keep in mind, this is 2004, so we're not talking about the quote-unquote hoverboard. We're talking about an electric scooter. They left a note that said, "A big shot like you shouldn't have to walk. This is how us hillbillies get around." And apparently that's how James Caan gets around, or got around the set of Las Vegas, at least for a while, according to Gary Scott Thompson, which is very fun. And you can see the fun just from the craps scenes that we've seen with Brooks and Dunn. You can already see their personality, which is why them, or at least Brooks, going into acting makes all the sense in the world. He's got character. So does Dunn, actually. But they, or was it, which did it? Brooks, yeah, Brooks went into acting. They have character. Like, they've got personality. Like, that's probably translated into their music for sure. And you can see it on screen. You can see the fun that they're having. You can see the fun that everybody around them is having. And it translates on screen in so many ways. We'll get back to them in a second. Let's let the dealer shuffle the deck for a second and we'll be right back. For the freshest and in-depth reactions and analysis of all the goings-on in hip-hop, sports, poetry, and everything else, go to Poetics Reacts on YouTube. Hosted by world-famous poet and chef Mr. Poetic, Poetics Reacts gives you points of view you never thought of and never thought of saying out loud. Go to YouTube and search Poetics Reacts or tinyurl.com/PoeticsReacts now. That's PoetixReacts. But now we have Jack Keller, Ed, and Nessa walking the floor. Ah, my darling Nessa. I think this is the first time we've seen her in this episode. And she gets to, I almost want to say as a reward, but I don't even know if it's a reward. This is just her job now. This is just her life. She gets to do a scene with Alec Baldwin and James Caan where they're just having fun, where they're just she gets a lesson in acting just by sitting there and watching them play off of each other. And she asks about them tearing it up back in the day, how the old men tearing it up, and they talk about how you can see the back and forth with them. And this scene is great, aside from the darling Nessa. This scene is great because you get to see the camaraderie, you get to see more of the relationship between Ed and Jack, which really helps build that foundation and fill in a lot of the blanks and a lot of the world of Ed DeLine at this point, which has been primarily a mystery. He's got a wife, he's got a daughter, he runs a casino, he's been in the CIA. We don't know much more than that. We get to see him interact with a friend now. We've seen him interact with a long-lost cousin and an old senator that he really hated, but we get to see him interact with a friend. We get to see jovial James Caan, which is something that we got glimpses of, but not even necessarily jovial. He was nice, he was cool, he was funny, but this is fun James Caan. And they get to tell Nessa the time theory. And, well, they can explain it way better than I can.
Then I'm sure you can enlighten me with your theories on men and women.
You ready?
Yes.
Men and women are different.
That's it?
What do you mean? Yeah. Tell her the time thing. Okay. A girl's walking down the strip. Good-looking guy pulls up in a brand new Ferrari. He says, "Do you have the time?" She says, 2:30, and he points to a penthouse on top of the Montecito. He says to her, "Hey, I find you very attractive, and I'd like to make love to you in my penthouse up there, right? So, out of 100 women, how many women do you think would go?"
I don't know. Maybe 10? What's your point?
Okay, guy's walking down the strip. Less than wonderful-looking broad pulls up in a beat-up Tercel. She says, "Do you have the time?" He says, 2:30, and she points to a tenement apartment on top of a beat-up liquor store, and she says, "I find you very attractive. I'd like you to come to my place and go a couple of rounds, and..."
And every single guy would go.
They not only go, they run home, they brag to all their friends, and their friends think he's the luckiest guy on earth.
You see, men and women are different.
Absolutely.
Don't overthink it.
Great scene, and it ends with Jack Keller saying, "Don't overthink it." Keep that line in mind. And so they're going to actually try to play it out. Jack Keller's actually going to go and talk to some attractive women and get pumped up by James Caan. Look, hold on a second. As a guy, that is a guy thing to do. Especially in Vegas, especially back then in the older Vegas. The older Vegas. Why is it the older Vegas? I'm not gonna shed a tear for what Vegas is now. I'm gonna love this version of Vegas. That is a guy thing to do. You pump your friend up. You get him psyched up. You get the blood flowing. You get the capillaries opening up in his veins and his nose and his hair and whatever. You get him pumped up. You get him psyched. You get him going to the point where he's walking up and psyching himself out as he walks away. Who's the boss? Who's the boss? Who's the boss? Who's the boss? Who's the boss?
Who's the boss? Who's the boss? Who's the boss? Who's the boss? Do you have the time?
By the way, that's a great line. The "Who's the boss" line. I've said that to myself a few times. And watching this episode again, I'm going to bring it back to myself. Who's the boss? Who's the boss? When I'm trying to pump myself up, who's the boss? I'm going to go to the gym a couple days after I record this, and I'm gonna be, who's the boss? I'm gonna just pumping iron. Who's the boss? Who's the boss? Who's the boss? Anyway, Alec Baldwin's the boss in this episode. He's sitting next to a couple of gorgeous women, and he asks, "Do they have the time?" And Ed says, "Dead in the water." There is a musical cue here at the end of this Jack Keller scene. Well, not at the end. It's through the whole thing, but I'm sticking it here at the end. On the original, you hear "My Next Broken Heart" by Brooks and Dunn. You hear production music for Peacock and Amazon, and for DVD, you hear different production music. That's a thing that happens in this episode a lot, too, is that they change the different, even though it's production background music, they change some of that for streaming. And there's some of it's a little bit more intricate than that, but we'll come across that when we come across that. In any event, I said it again, Danny walks Sam up to her room. Now, a lot of this plot line is based around the fact that the writers just really remembered as they were coming up with this episode that, oh yeah, in the pilot, we said that Sam lives in the casino. She has 120 days of living in the casino. And we've way bypassed the 120 days, the 4 months of her living in the casino at this point, which I suppose, because they didn't really know when stuff was going to air, I don't think, obviously. which is why we had, like, in the Year of the Tiger episode, the newspaper said November, or said earlier, even though it was aired later than that. So we're 12 episodes in. We not really bypassing it, but you're coming up on it. In any event, they said, I did it again. Take your shot. In any event, there it is again. They realized that and they wanted to delve deeper. So this is an opening episode. We get to see a lot more of Ed and his backstory, and we get to hear a lot more of Sam and her backstory, and that's great. She is definitely 3 sheets to the wind, but she is standing in that doorway, and she just cannot resist this goofy, grinned, crutched Josh Duhamel. And who can't? I just want to leap through the screen right now just looking at him. But Danny is not going to take her up on her offer because she asked,
You want to come in?
I should probably get back down.
Okay. Bye.
Did he mess up? James Caan thinks he did. James Caan said at that moment he wanted to punch. He would want to punch Danny. If he was their guy and he was standing right there, he would want to punch Danny in the face just for that, just for saying no. Even though James Caan was the one who didn't want them to hook up in the first place. But at that moment, he's like, I want to punch him right. I want to punch him right in the nose just for that. So we're sitting at Bellicera with Jack and Ed and some of Jack's associates at his company, and the changeover is 20% complete. So things are moving along faster than normal, according to Jack, faster than he anticipated. As we're sitting there at Bellicera, we hear another musical cue. On the original, the song is My Baby's Everything I Love, obviously by Brooks and Dunn. DVD, we hear production music. Amazon and Peacock, we hear a song called Old Dog New Tricks by Jim Wolfe, which is not a great song in the least. It's best to keep that in the background as they sit and talk. Jack Keller talks about how he used to read all of Ed's old files, and Ed is flabbergasted by that, and Jack gives him a compliment. He says, you're the best, you want to be the best, you got to learn from the best. And he brings out a gift for Ed in this old school crate with the chain on it and everything. It looks almost like a box that the old Tasmanian Devil cartoons, Taz would have been shipped in, or fallen from an airplane and lands on a beach in one of those old crates. But in that crate is what Jack calls a Somali chieftain's mask. I looked this up. This is all BS made up for the show. But in the story, he says,
This is Somali chieftain's mask.
No workmanship, that's fantastic.
Somalis gave it as a sign of friendship and respect for their mentors.
Thank you very much, Jack. Thank you.
Go ahead, try it on.
Come on.
Oh, really? It's got a special lining that molds to the first wearer's face.
Keep that in mind. Ed says he doesn't want to do it. Jack says, don't be a hump. Go ahead and do it, please. We get to see an interesting shot from Ed's point of view where Jack is smiling, and there's a glint in Jack's eye as he smiles as Ed is looking through that mask. That if you know what to look for, you know what to look for. That's not just a friend liking that you're enjoying his gift.
Are you happy?
But we'll move on. Jack then takes it and says, let me hold that thing, and puts it immediately in the crate. Boy, isn't that interesting. Danny calls and thinks that Ed is over by the pit and wants to help Nessa with something, but instead they're in Bellicera. Wait a minute, we're not live. Why aren't we live? This is a problem, isn't it? They think that they may have to reboot, but the process is already moving along too quickly. They're too deep in. They have to keep going. They can't align their old system with their new system. They're incompatible, so they actually have to speed it up. Interestingly enough, in this episode is when the actual show Las Vegas went digital. They were still on some form of analog as well. This episode is when they actually did cross over into doing more digital shots, digital effects, etc. And at this point, they're trying to figure out a plan. Danny's thinking that they might have been hacked. They're all working together to try to fix whatever problem it is. And Alec, when Ed tells him that we need to get this done ASAP, Alec, or Jack, says,
Listen, we're holding a lot of cash. I got to get this done in 24 hours.
Well, don't worry, it'll be done.
Okay, good.
And the way he looks at him is almost like, are you accusing me of something? Huh. Yeah, What an interesting little bit of acting there by Mr. Baldwin. As we move on, we see Ed basically running it down before the act breaks, saying, somebody's trying to knock over my casino. And we go into the vault, and Jack and Ed are going over the details of what they normally do with the money and the chips in the vault in terms of times that they're sent to and from the bank. Interesting bit of tidbit here is that we learn through the DVD commentary that casinos don't actually have vaults. They really just have rooms. Now, the rooms get changed in and out, and they have, if you've watched Ocean's 11, they were knocking off a vault. But they do get this one bit correct that Las Vegas also gets correct, which is that they only are legally obligated to keep as much money on hand as there are chips in play in the casino. And they keep track of that just by how many chips have gone out that day. So they don't necessarily need an entire vault, but they built one. At least the show Las Vegas built one because they didn't have a vault before this episode, and here they do. And they expanded it out, actually. And so in the coming episodes, we're going to see a few more instances of the vault over the seasons, and it's going to get bigger, and we're going to be in it more, and it's going to be more exciting. But as of right now, we're just having a conversation in it between Ed and Jack. And they talk about the good old days. They talk about the company, which is a way that the CIA has talked about in television and movies. A lot of times when they're trying to quote-unquote keep a secret, they'll say the company. I don't know if that's a real thing that people who actually are in the CIA will say. Maybe my handlers who's watching my every search on the internet can tell me, oh, look at that, a pop-up just happened. Anyway, they decide that they're going to leave the vault, and it's only going to be accessible through Ed and his facial scan. And that's the only way that anyone's going to have access to it is with Ed's face. And so they scan it, and in that scan, you see different dots appear on Ed's face. And boy, isn't that interesting? Those almost look like points where, they almost look a little familiar, don't they? Well, it's probably nothing. We shoot over to the comedy set with the Portland Dangler, Ed, Delinda, Mary, and Jack. And this is not a comedy club. What they did is they converted Mystique to look like this comedy club. Again, their economy of what they have. They're trying to use as the set as much as possible, as many times as possible, because they ain't got any more set. They got to use it. So really, what we did is we turned around the camera positioning, I guess, of where you would look at normally in Mystique, and tarped off some stuff, and again tried to make it look fuller and maybe even bigger than it, which is weird because a lot of comedy spots are usually smaller, more intimate gatherings, but they tried to fill it in. Then we see Mike up in surveillance, and he's checking on the software, but he only spots what appears to be an error. This is one of those scenes that I talked about the last episode, how some of these scenes were probably rewritten to accommodate Josh's injury, how Ed did a lot of the heavy lifting last episode. Well, now we're accommodating his injury again because this scene was really supposed to be them walking through the casino, but to accommodate Danny and Josh's injury, they're in surveillance instead. Danny is definitely distracted. He's not listening to Mike. He's distracted because of Sam.
You listening?
Let me ask you something. If the hottest female in this place invites you up to her room, no questions asked, you go?
Mike immediately says, you and Delinda are back. Danny says no. Mike jumps to him and Nessa, which is another shipper that did happen in the old Las Vegas, the series forms, the shipper forms. It didn't get a whole lot of traction, but it did happen occasionally. And then we hear,
Mary, you guys finally got...
You see that? Even Mike is Team Derry, is all I'm saying. Even Mike is, I think. That's how it sounded to me. That's how it sounded to me. You guys finally got, and he cuts off. I think he meant to say, you guys finally got your stuff together. You guys finally got your heads right. But he didn't. And that only, Danny says that's a whole nother thing. Trust me, which means there's something deeper there. And that only leaves, oh no, you got that sick look. That only leaves Samantha Jane Marquez. And Mike says,
have you lost your mind? Why? Danny, this chick will mince you up into itty-bitty white boy meatballs. I think she's kind of sweet.
Which is not untrue. Kind of sweet. The kind of sweet that she is, though, is a dangerous kind of sweet. It's just a dangerous kind of sweet. And Mike is trying to give him some advice, trying to tell him to not do it, to run away. He said he's seen men try and he's seen men die. And here's the thing, though. Danny tried it. Remember in the pilot when he thought she was just Jane? Remember that? And she was only trying to get information from him, but now he's got a little bit more of an opening, and Mike knows. He just says, little white boy meatballs. Now, before we move on to this, I have to talk, we talk about shippers. We might as well talk about this one. We'll get into the Danny and Sam's shippers, because yes, there is a Danny and Sam shipper, probably named Sham, if memory corrects. But, you know what was one of the more popular shippers? One of the really more popular shippers, probably close third to Derry and D&D. Do you know what the really popular one was? Sam and Mike. I know. We'll see some interactions with them that I think fueled that little ship. But they were a very popular one. We cut to the comedy show again with everybody all there. And our boy Richie is trying to dodge the Dangler bit as much as possible. He's up there, he's doing his Pacino, which is how he got the part in the first place, by the way. The writers heard him on Howard Stern doing Pacino. And that's how he got the part. They asked if he could do a James Caan. His James Caan was okay, so they ADR'd the real James Caan in. But his Pacino was fantastic.
What if Al Pacino was your blackjack dealer? That guy's a cool guy, right? Can you imagine Al Pacino's your blackjack dealer going,
yeah, you want me to hit you? Huh? You want me to hit you? You're gonna know when I hit you, baby.
And that's what got him the role. And James Caan said that, it sounded just like Pacino. If you close your eyes, you would just hear Pacino. And he is, again, trying to dodge the Dangler thing. He's trying to be a good boy. He's trying to play for the Montecito.
That's right.
Hey, Richie, my drink needs stirring.
Then it would behoove you to ask your waitress, ass bite.
But again, the rowdy-ass cowboys that are there for Brooks and Dunn want to see the Brooklyn Dangler. Or Portland Dangler. Brooklyn Dangler? No, I don't want to see any Dangler, honestly. But they want to see the Portland Dangler, not the Brooklyn Dangler, which is probably something completely different, having to do with mugging you and shoes on the light wire and everything. In any event, take your other shot. He comes down and he gives in to He lost the crowd. Basically what happened is his material lost the crowd, if for no other reason than because they wanted to. They were desperate to see the Dangler. And this is something that is actually not uncommon for comics, for comedians. They get a shtick, a bit that really works, and they do it a few times, and it becomes a tag. And they don't get away from it quick enough. Or they can't get away from it. Or they do it once, and they do it again, and they do it again, and soon it becomes a trademark, and they have to do it. Gallagher had to smash watermelons. No one remembers a Gallagher joke. Everyone remembers him smashing watermelons. Andrew Dice Clay had to do Hickory Dickory Dock Go. Had to. Gabriel Iglesias, he feeds into it. He ends all his comedy specials with the same joke. He feeds into it. Who else? Bill Engvall. Here's Your Sign. He had to do Here's Your Sign. Forever he had to. He probably still having to do Here's Your Sign. Jeff Foxworthy. You might be a redneck. Forever. Tim Allen had to grunt for ever. He's had to grunt forever. Tim Allen has to grunt at least one time in every project he's in, I think. Did he grunt in Galaxy Quest? He had to do it every time. He did it in the Santa Claus. So it's a common thing with comedians, is what I'm saying. I said all that to say it's a common thing with comedians, and I imagine, it's a hard process. If it's something like this, it's a hard process to break, especially if you didn't break it immediately. And I don't want to talk about breaking it when it comes to the Portland Dangler, but James Caan is thinking about breaking it right now or maybe even his neck, and James Caan is leaving. And if you look closely, you can tell that that's the Mystique bar, but only if you look very closely. They go back to surveillance, and Jack Keller is a fan of the Brooklyn Dangler. Portland Dangler! Portland! He's a fan of the Portland Dangler, and he talks to Ed and says,
we used to topple governments for a living. And now we MC the Gong Show and guard the take from some lousy slot machines. Whatever happened to us?
I don't know. I'll tell you what, I sure love it.
And as James Caan is berating Mary, because he already told Mary that he's holding her responsible for this Portland Dangler guy. As we go into this scene, here's a little tidbit that you probably didn't know unless you had the DVDs and watched them the amount of times that I have, or more. Miss Nikki Cox, intrepid thespian that she is powering through not only this scene, but this entire episode, specifically this scene, with about 104-degree fever. She is sick as a dog. And in a couple of lines, you can kind of hear that she might be a little congested, but nothing that's really out of the ordinary. And you can't see it on her face. I don't know what cocktail of quills, nye, and or day that she is playing with, but she's really plowing through. And in this scene, remember how she groveled for Ed with the couple, and remember how she groveled for Wayne Newton for that couple? Well, she's got to grovel for Ed. By the way, it doesn't matter. Portland Dangler is gone. Portland Dangler is out of here. So Ed is pouring it on.
Will you tell this Portland Dangler if he doesn't want to become the Vegas eunuch, he's to get off this property as soon as possible? Is that clear?
Yes.
Yes, what?
Sir?
And Ed says, you want me to send some security and help you do your job? Because she just kind of stands there in awe and in fear of Ed. Now, she should say yes. First mistake. Well, one of the first few mistakes. But she doesn't. She says,
You want me to send some security to help you do the show?
No, sir. No, I can take care of it.
Don't get cute with me.
I'm not.
and remember the curtsy she gave to Wayne Newton? She does it again. She curtsies again. How can you not love Miss Mary Connell? How can you not be in love with this girl? Danny, who just happens to pass by the scene in crutches, but there's a lot of stuff that's actually going on. Mike is trying to debug the system and try to find out what the problem is, but they don't see anything nefarious. He doesn't see anything nefarious. Let's not say they don't. He doesn't. So Mike doesn't see any glitch. Meanwhile, Danny was asked to run any new license plates or IDs or anything when they saw that they were about 5 minutes behind and not actually live. Danny brings up somebody that he thinks is just a random person with the new license plate or whatever for 6 months. Jack knows exactly who she is. That's Carla Marin.
Check this out. The computer did spit out one thing. New credit card, new driver's license, Elisa Sarver, Pine Bluff, Arkansas.
Arkansas, my ass. You don't know who that is?
Yeah.
Oh. You're looking at Carla Marin.
Oh, the queen of the hackers.
There must be 1,000 websites devoted to her.
I didn't know they let her out.
The chick's an ex-convict?
Oh, yeah. Stole 15,000 pristine credit card accounts and got away with $8 million before they found out what happened.
That is the hottest geek I've ever seen.
So she is a big fish. For reference, that $8 million that she stole in today's money would be $13,635,593.95. She stole a lot of money and didn't put any in the Podecito Patreon. Isn't that a shame? We cut to the Portland Dangler in his hotel room as Mary comes in to give him the axe, but she didn't knock. And boy, oh boy, she asks, why do you have all the surveillance monitors on your... and gets a gun pulled on sweet, loving Mary Connell. We immediately cut to Sam and Danny on the casino floor. And again, we're going over a small amount of space. There's going to be spots in the casino floor that are blacked out because you're not really supposed to see or look over there. As we cut to them, musical cue again, we hear Red Dirt Road on the original version. Again, obviously, the original version is all going to be Brooks and Dunn doing the soundtrack. There's a production song on the DVD. There is a different production song on Amazon, and I think a different production song on Peacock. It might be the same as the Amazon one. It sounded a little bit different. It might be the same. As we're watching this, it's important to know, well, not important, but here's a little tidbit. Josh didn't always need crutches in these next few episodes. And according to Gary Scott Thompson, this may have been one of the scenes that was shot out of order. So Josh that he could remember, may or may not have actually needed the crutches, but because of the timeline in the episode where it was in, he had to go back on crutches, even if he didn't necessarily need them. Another little bit of good acting here is that Sam is obviously hungover. Very quick, little holding her head, the sounds around her are getting to her very quick, but it's a good acting choice by Vanessa Marcil. Danny is trying to get back in. He's saying, hey, listen, I don't know what the hell I was thinking about last night. Maybe we can run it back. We've all been there, fellas, haven't we? Haven't we? We've all kind of been there. It was like, oh, I think I may have blew the shot. I gotta, can I go back and can I redo it? Can I get another shot? And many times, the window of opportunity closes very quickly. Very, very quickly. And it closes very quickly here as well. Sam is not having any of it. Danny says, I guess I was a little bit surprised. She's trying to play it off as if she doesn't remember. but she does remember, and you couldn't close. That's it. It's over. And Danny is confused.
Oh, yesterday, you had your shot. You couldn't close. It's done.
Wait. That's it? That's all I get? What about the sad mystery, the pushing people away?
Don't overthink it.
Hey, remember that line?
Why don't you take a little break?
Yeah, that's a good idea. You're gonna stretch the legs, wash the face, refocus.
There you go.
Okay, I'm your amigo. Okay, I'm your amiga. Let's dance the night away until our bodies got fever.
You're listening to Bundeswing by 1989 TRE. If you like what you're hearing and you want to hear more, hear it again, or both, just go to Spotify and search 1989 TRE, all one word. That's 1989, the letters TRE.
More drinks, tequila, more memories needed. We're gonna live in the moment, como esta noche para siempre. My life is crazy, just like a movie scene. I've been so many places and seen beautiful things, but my mind is captured by this beautiful queen whose dances got me.
Immediately we slide to Brooks and Dunn, who saw the whole thing. And again, they know Danny. And this is one of the great things I love about this episode and about Brooks and Dunn coming to the Montecito. What we haven't really seen so far on this show, a whole lot, I'm trying to even think. We really haven't. Any of these big guest stars that we've had so far. We've had some guest stars with some notoriety, etc. We really haven't seen any of them know the crew. We really haven't seen any of them almost be surrogate parts of the crew, almost family of the crew, almost like, you remember the it's almost a meme at this point of a long lost cousin who knows everybody, a cool celebrity cousin who knows everybody and is friends with. But it works here. Like it's one of the TV tropes. You can find that TV trope, but it works here because Brooks and Dunn are so good and so easy in that role, so natural in that role, especially when compared to Sugar Shane Mosley last week, who looked and sounded like he was literally reading from cue cards every time he talked to Ed, who he was supposed to have known for a while. Brooks and Dunn feel like they have known these guys for a while, and they know everybody in the casino. We'll see that later, but they know everyone in the casino. And it feels like it. It feels like it. And it feels like a party. And it feels like a party you want to be a part of. Boy, is that not one of the big joys of Las Vegas? Is you're watching this show, this episode, and you're lost and immersed in the world so fully that you want to be there. So Brooks and Dunn have overheard Sam and Danny's discussion, and they give Danny their hat. Well, Ronnie Dunn gives him his hat just to kind of cheer him up or whatever. It actually looks good on him. It looks good on Josh. It does. It plays well.
Hey, Danny. How you doing?
How's it going?
It's going a little better than you by the sound of things, huh?
Yeah.
What you need's a hat. You cover that up. Only guy in here with worse hair than Ronnie Dunn.
Yeah.
Hey, give me 100 on that.
Chicks will really dig you now. It's a hell of a party. Go have fun.
I will. 24. Hey, where is he?
And Brooks and Dunn are super winning at the blackjack table, and they have said that they wish that they won that much in the real life Vegas. But this is the fantasy Vegas, so it's even better. And it lives on forever. Mary is definitely in trouble. She's got the gun held up to her as Dangler is still trying to finish up the hacking process and really the delay sequence process. And he gives his Ed impression, which is okay, but it's not fantastic. And then he calls the queen of the hackers, Miss Marin, who right at that moment is met by the real Ed. So we get to hear voice for voice. And I'm pretty sure that was the real Ed that did ADR for that. As we cut from that commercial break back to the casino, we see 2 cowboys arm wrestling. We see a cowboy saddled up to a cowgirl. We see it. Everything. Everybody is partying. Everything is flowing. Now this is sort of reminiscent, according to the DVD commentary. The kind of look and feel that they were going for, aside from just the Brooks and Dunn concert, was rodeo. Was the rodeo that comes through apparently, I don't know anything about rodeo, comes through Las Vegas every year. And apparently, and I didn't know this, and I've seen the commentary a bunch of times, but it never really stuck to me, James Caan was into rodeo. James Caan did rodeo. Huh? According to the DVD commentary track, James Caan was very into rodeo. Who'd have thunk it? Sonny Corleone into rodeo? What? But I guess it fits. Because in the era that he grew up in, cowboys were the biggest thing on the planet you think we've been sitting with the Marvel superheroes for a long time. Cowboys were everywhere for a long time. So with James Caan's age, he's right in that range where the deer and the antelope play. No, he's right in that range of kid that would be his immersion. Growing up wherever he grew up, you're playing cowboys and commanders. But that's what you're doing. So it fits. It fits. But we see Brooks and Dunn again at the crap table, and when you know it, they're winning. They are on some kind of roll that has been going on this entire time. Ed is sitting there with the queen of the hackers, Miss Carla Marin. Let's talk about Miss Carla Marin. First, let's talk about the actress. Her name is Catalina Laranga, which I don't know if I said that correctly or not. We're going to pretend that I did. She has been in a lot of stuff. Some stuff that you may or may not have seen. And if you have seen it, you probably won't admit that you've seen some of it. But you know, if you were perusing some late night cable in the late 90s, early 2000s, you may have seen her in some things. Her first credited role was in Hostile Takeover as Janie Arnett in 1997. She did, along the way, a role with Alec Baldwin's brother, Daniel, and Angie Everhart in Bear Witness in 2002, B-A-R-E. It was a video. She played Julie Spencer. She did this role, and not long after that, in 2006, she did her last credited role, Read You Like a Book, as Gina. Along the way, she has been in quite a few videos that you might have seen on Skinamax or HBO After Dark. I'm not sure which networks these were on. I don't know the recipe. I don't have these tapes, but I'm just saying some of these titles: Passion Cove, Surrender, House of Love, Erotic Daydream, Angel Vamp Waitress. That just sounds like it came out of a word generator. Castle Eros. That's a little bit more. That's a little bit more fancy. They got a little fancier with that one. But yeah, those type of movies is where you've seen her most. The character she plays on this is called Carla Marin. Carla Marin was a real person, but she wasn't a hacker. She was a PA for Las Vegas, and that's who the character is named after. Carla Marin was additional crew here. She also was a production coordinator for Ice Loves Coco. And she was a producer for The Real Story of Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Ice Love Coco, and 33 episodes of Ridiculousness. And we will actually see Miss Carla Marin on Las Vegas next season, episode 18, to Protect and Serve Manicotti, where she plays the role of a lifetime, a production assistant. Yeah, she plays production assistant. That is Carla Marin, who is being played on the show by Catalina, who is, I don't know if the real Carla Marin, wasn't able to find any pictures, was this sultry and sexy, but listen, I take that as a compliment myself. I am sexy and sultry, but if I were a girl and they decided that they were going to, let's move on. As Ed and Carla are talking, we have another musical cue as we come onto the scene. In the original version, Brooks and Dunn song "Brand New Man." In the DVD version, the song is "Cadillac Boogie" by Universal Production Music. Why wouldn't it be? Because it's owned by Universal, NBC Universal. Why wouldn't they have their own production music in the DVD? That makes sense. And they gave it a YouTube slot, so good for Universal Production Music. On the Amazon and Peacock version, there is a production song. Now, this production song is a weird one because it seems to go on for a while. It seems to stop at the exact perfect place in the scene. It is completely different. The lyrics are less than juvenile. Not juvenile like in a bad way, but like juvenile as in like a 5-year-old sounded like they wrote them. The lyrics that you can hear. It's not a great song. You can't, and I can't track it anywhere else, all of which come together to make me think that maybe they are starting to implement AI songs on the streaming services. Because there's a lot of production songs on the streaming services that I can't track, and that happens, right? And they've mixed them a little bit better, but they are starting, this one in particular sticks out, and I'm starting to think maybe they just had AI generate some random country song to throw in there. That just and you trim it, you say that it's going to need to be 3 minutes and 21 seconds, and it'll be exactly 3 minutes and 21 seconds. They'll manipulate, the AI will do its thing, and it will put it underneath as a sound bed. I don't know that I like that. In any event, Carla and Ed talk, and we hear that Ed has checked entirely too thoroughly on Carla, and she's perfectly clean.
But the terms of my parole state that I have to stay away from computers, not cards and dice.
I understand. But unfortunately, I prefer you take your action elsewhere.
That's his prerogative as the president of operations of the casino. They can kick you out for anything or nothing. That's just the way it is, and it makes sense. They have to do that a lot of times to protect themselves or other people. We get a fun whoosh here as it's a horse kind of galloping, and you can hear the horse sounds as it gallops towards Danny in his cowboy hat, being assisted by two lovely young ladies. As he's walking with the cowboy hat, he is met with Delinda in pigtails, who is looking pretty good, actually, in this episode and in this scene. Actually, she looks like she just came out of the sun a little bit. Little sun bronze, so it's really looking good on her. And Danny tells the stupid, cheap country joke, and he's looking for Sam, and Mary and Sam are looking for each other, and he mentions it. He's looking for Sam. He's wondering if Sam talked to Mary, and Delinda, her ears perk up. Her spidey sense is tingling.
Wait a minute. You slept with Sam, didn't you?
No.
But something happened.
No. I swear to God.
Okay.
Excuse me, why would you care?
Because you're still in love with me, cowboy.
Giddy up.
Now, at that scene, that's one of the takes. Another take, Danny stepped on Linda's foot during one of the scenes. It's apparently in the blooper reel. But this is a point, D&D shippers, is another point for you. I think you got one earlier with Danny and Mike in surveillance. You got another point here, D&D shippers. I'm not going to take points away from you. I'm not. I'm going to be as fair and as impartial. Well, not impartial. I'm going to be as fair as I can be about this whole shipper business. That's another point in your column. If you're keeping track, there's another point in your column, D&D shippers. It is. But the episode is not over. And Delinda is not over because her walk away. I have talked about Delinda's walk away in these last couple episodes. It is on. It's nice. It's looking pretty nice. And Danny is walking through the casino again. The same small. If you've seen it enough times, especially the same episode over and over again in a row, you start to pick up on the small area that we're going through over and over again. Also, shadows. I think maybe they did kill the lighting on a couple of different things, and probably that saves a little bit of money. And that's going to come into play. Saving money is going to come into play in the next episode too, as well as lighting. So there's little production notes. This is kind of a precursor to that, even though they're going to blow a ton of money in this episode. So they're trying to save as much as they can by like dimming some of the lights and using only some of the casino. They're going to blow a bunch of money on this episode at the end, but that's later. Right now, Danny runs into Sam again, and Sam is confused by the cowboy hat. And if we're being perfectly honest, Sam is confused by a lot here. And the cowboy hat is like the last of it, but she's definitely confused about some stuff. Danny decides that he's not going to take this abuse from Sam at this point. She says,
Hey, I heard you were looking for Mary.
Yeah, I'm trying to confirm my guest for the Brooks and Dunn concert tonight. She's gone AWOL.
Is it a problem?
I'm sorry, I'm a bit mesmerized by the hat.
You like that, don't you?
You look like an idiot.
Nice chatting with you.
Wait, Danny, wait.
Oh, easy there.
That breaks Sam. That breaks her. Listen. A whole lot has been breaking Sam in this episode. And a lot of it has to do with her. A lot of it has to do with her relationship with Danny. This is a key episode for the Danny and Sam shippers. And yes, there were Danny and Sam shippers. Really since the pilot. Because obviously Danny had flirted with Sam and tried to date her, ask her out, get in her pants, whatever. But a lot of this stuff, a lot of the interactions between them in this episode still does trace back to that pilot episode. Do you remember in the pilot episode? You should. And if you don't, go back and re-listen or re-watch it. It's okay. I'll wait. I won't. But I will. You can pause this and you can look that one up and give me an extra view if you want. But in the pilot episode, when Sam and Danny were in the suite with Mr. Bunny Shoes, and Sam saw that Danny was legit in terms of how he treated people, how nice he was to Mr. Bunny Slippers, how he was trying to get Mr. Bunny Slippers to do the right thing and walk away, as opposed to just keeping all the money for the casino, which in the casino's terms would have been the right thing for them, but not necessarily for Mr. Bunny Slippers. The slight look on her face of, who is this genuine guy? Who is this realness? That was the first little chip. That was the first little crack in her armor, really, in that pilot episode. And along the way, obviously, we've seen Sam soften up a little bit, where she institutes some Podecito magic for some folks. We've seen how far she'll go for her clients. And Sam knows Danny to some extent. At this point, she knows a lot of Danny's heart and how genuine Danny is. Even if he's not always on the bean, up until now, how genuine he's been. And I asked, did Danny make a mistake when he didn't accept Sam's offer to come into the room last night? The answer, at least on this show, is it was an inadvertent master maneuver because it short-circuited Sam's brain. She didn't know how to accept that. I don't know that she's ever really had. Probably she's Vanessa Marcil in 2004. She's Vanessa Marcil in 2024. Look at her. You gonna say no to Vanessa Marcil? Come on. But Danny did. Danny said no to Sam. A sure thing. You want to come into my room in Las Vegas when I'm drunk and vulnerable. James Caan wanted to punch Danny in the face for not taking that off. But not taking that offer helped break Sam. She doesn't know what to think. She's now infatuated with the genuineness, the sweetness, the legit sweetness of Daniel Thaddeus McCoy. Daniel DeMarquius McCoy. Of Danny McCoy. She doesn't know what to think. Who is this genuine guy who's being a genuine guy? And it really cracks here because she was negging Danny. You look like an idiot. That's. Remember when I said Sam is her layer of sweetness is buried? It's buried under kerosene. It's buried under dynamite. So it's buried in barbed wire. But it's there. And stuff like that's her. I feel like that's her way of flirting, and we see that later. When we get to the Woody episodes, we do see that, and a few other episodes with Sam, we do see that she's not like other girls who are and sweet and the way that she flirts. She almost grabs you. She's almost like an animal. The way she probably wants to club Danny over the head and drag him back to her cave. If you're being perfectly honest, to the point where we get to this part of the episode, she shoves him, or as Danny says, pile drives him against a slot machine. I have seen this behavior in women in my past. Don't ask too many questions, but I will say that it is usually with a hardened woman who at that time is ready to soften but doesn't really know how. And I think Sam does. She's sober now. I don't think she really knows how. But I do think that she is interested in Danny. For sure, she's interested in Danny. And she's looking at him. She says she wants to apologize for this morning. She wants another shot. And she doesn't realize that she almost broke. She's like, Danny's got one leg. He was shot in the leg, and she's hip checking him into slot machines like she's a defensive back. But she is opening up and sweet. And the fact, again, she openly says it. The fact that Danny didn't take advantage of her in her state last night. Again, she can't stop needling him. She can't stop a little stupid of, but no. Danny's genuineness is winning her over to the point where she has to ask him again.
Do you want to come up to my room right now?
What's the magic word?
Dump the hat.
Close enough.
Mary is tied up, according to Gary Scott Thompson, for 14 hours straight. And in this scene, she gets told all of the exposition of how the Portland Dangler got into this situation where he is hacking the Montecito.
I discover I have a talent. It's not for impressions.
It's for making online security systems a little less secure. I hacked a site that turned out to be run by some very dangerous guys. I logged off quickly, but they found me. A couple days later, get off stage, and some big guys are waiting with some big guns. I didn't have a choice. I had to go to work for him.
That's when I learned something. It's a lot easier to steal people's money than it is to make them laugh.
But you're actually funny.
Really? Do you mean that?
Now, I don't know if Mary's just trying to buy time or ingratiate herself to the Dangler, especially after he very creepily almost touches her, like brushes his fingers like across like the hair on her neck. It's this very weird scene and trying to get to him, but it's working. Like you can see the wheel in his head of some kind of, hasn't ever really connected, like he's not connecting with people, nor, you know, like a girl, like you can kind of see that. And so she's trying to talk and be communicative, and she asks who's on the phone that he just called, and he gives another great impression of Schwarzenegger here. If I told you, I'd have to kill you all. It's a very good impression, actually. Sam and Danny go back up to Sam's room, and here we hear more of Sam's, not necessarily backstory, but the bones of her character. How her stuff is still in suitcases.
I always keep my bags packed.
Why?
I'm not the kind of girl who puts down roots.
I guess you never know when you're going to get a better offer.
Yeah.
She never unpacks because she never likes to get tied down to one place. And that is just that small little scene is a very deep scene when it comes to Sam's background that will get expounded upon as the seasons continue. It's too much to go into just at once here, but it's a very good seed for what will blossom into the tree of Sam. That sounds like a terrible movie. Jack Keller and Ed are in Ed's office, and they're sharing a drink as the situation with the system is continuing. The crossover is continuing. Here's to our new security system, fully installed. But before the toast, Ed asks for them to toast.
Welcome to the 21st century.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's drink to the communists, without whom we'd have never met.
The communists.
James Caan brought this up, that they brought in a special tattoo artist to do Big Ed's arm tattoo that we see all throughout the show. And it was James Caan's last minute decision to say, hey, why don't we give Jack Keller one of these as well, to say that we serve like in the same group. Now the tattoo is fake, but it's to symbolize the group that they were with, the team that they were with, where they had all these different CIA adventures. And that is a great tidbit to throw into this episode, because as they toast, they touch the tattoos on their forearms together, and you can see the camaraderie that they've had all these years, that they've worked together in the same unit, and it fills in so much backstory with just a little tattoo tap, with just a little thing like that. Oh, this is I'm falling more and more in love with this episode as I'm watching it. As they do this, up comes this score that almost sounds military. To me, it was very reminiscent of The West Wing. It's on all versions. It's probably just some production song. I couldn't track it anywhere. And the running joke with the tattoos was that if the show had made it to season 7, the entire crew would get that tattoo on their butt. So here's hoping for a reboot, and we can get 2 more seasons. And at least for the tattoo artist, he can get an extra little payday on that. Keller keeps asking Ed to come and join him after they talk about their past CIA adventures with all the communists that are left over and the ones that they overthrew, including Ed to Noriega. out in Panama, because that's where Jack wants to go. He wants to head to Panama, and he wants to bring Ed with him. Ed doesn't want to go. He's enjoying his life right now. But Jack is ready to throw it all away. Now, I wondered if Jack is having this very successful security company, why would he be talking about going to an island somewhere? Like, that's usually something somebody does or talks about as they're committing a big score of some kind. I'm thinking too much. Hold on a second. Let's get a new deck in here, and we'll be right back.
I assume you're interested in large amounts of money.
It's Vegas, who isn't?
If you like the podcast and you want to help support it, you can send a Cash App, join our Patreon or Subscribe Star, or buy us a coffee. Just search The Podecito on all those platforms. And so the Portland Dangler decides he's going to shoot a shot with Mary at this point, which makes me think that the little "you're actually funny" really got to him, to the point where he's like, what if after all this I come back, even though I've tied you up here for you to watch me commit these crimes, and in real life I may not, for the sake of the show, he's going to let her survive, but in real life it probably won't go down like that. And Mary retorts with,
"Yeah, I could try to arrange a private showing of the Portland Dangler."
I'm sorry. I only booked the big acts.
In which case, Richie is completely dejected. You can see the look on his. You can see him not completely snap. You can see his twig does bend. It doesn't completely snap in his head, but it does bend to the point where he has to gag Mary as he does a Sam Kinison impression on his way out the door. And we see footage that is, you see that the footage that everybody in the surveillance camera is watching is still lagging. And this is a great scene here as Richie turns to where he knows the camera is, gives a very evil smile. Not very evil, but he gives a smile that's very reminiscent of like a high school friend I had. Good guy. But I know that I know that smile. And we whoosh back to the surveillance room and we see that that's not what they see on that screen. Ed and Mike are in surveillance and they're talking again about Jack Keller being about to leave. But oh, wait a minute. They just got notified that the footage just reset again. And what they were watching 5 minutes ago isn't legit. The interference is clearly coming from inside the hotel room. Or at least from inside the hotel. And then they call, or Ed, or Danny gets a call seemingly from Ed, who tells him that they've been hacked again, but they've located the source. And it's near the Bella Sara kitchen. That's a weird place, especially in 2003, when Wi-Fi really wasn't as prevalent. What exactly would be in the Bella Sara kitchen that would really even be hooked up to any kind of internet source in 2003? Like, they have the printer system that probably goes back and forth from where the wait staff is to the kitchen, or where the bar staff is to the kitchen, but a whole ass internet in 2003 or 4, that's not, I don't know how that really checks out. Sam tells Danny that she never unpacks, even though Danny suggests that she does. If at any point the Danny and Sam shipper should hate anybody on this show, it should be at that point. Because it wasn't Ed that called Danny. It was the Dangler as Ed. And that was the point. Because Sam was looking deep into Danny's eyes. And I think she was going to make that move. So the sham shippers, they should be mad at the Portland Dangler. He's the one that screwed that up and redirected Danny to a point, like I said, there's no internet to hack at that particular point. And he calls Ed, and Ed says that that's not where, I didn't call you. What? He's very confused. So obviously there's a whole distraction plan thing going. Mike tracks it down to Dangler's hotel room, and here, this scene right here, when they open the hotel room and they see that Mary is tied up and Danny is willing to trip over his crutches and his broken foot to lunge to untie Mary, to lunge to save Mary. The look on his face. All right, D&D shippers, you had your little moment with the "you're still in love with me" cowboy, but this, the way that he ran, dove to save her, that is a definite, big, fat, giant point for Team Derry. The first thing she asks is, did he get away? And he asked,
Okay. You're here.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Come on. If I had a heart, the black hole in my chest where a heart used to be just grew 3 sizes. The way that she said that you're here. Oh my, her knight in shining armor, her savior, her Superman. Get out of here with that. All right, so we shoot back up to surveillance. Oh, I don't even know how I could go. That scene is just fantastic. Anyway, they shoot back up to surveillance. Danny is hobbling very quickly. We find out that Mary is okay, but she's pissed. And they're trying to work out exactly what happened. We get to see the crew of Danny, Ed, and Mike together in the surveillance room. Get used to seeing that sight. We're going to be seeing a lot more of that in the coming seasons. Ed sees that it was the Dangler who did it, and he's starting to piece a couple of things together. He's looking for adjacent cameras and sequences, so he's trying to kind of see exactly where things went wrong, where Danny was sent on the wild goose chase to buy some time, and Ed says, go to the holding vault. Go to any activity in the last 15 hours. And we go there and we see what looks to be Ed going to the vault. He shows his face. The screen opens and it's Ed DeLine on the screen. And here's the thing. So in that scene, here's what trips me out in that scene. So we're watching the vault from however many hours ago, and yet, even though we're watching archive footage, we're still able to zoom in like it's in real time to the screen where Ed's face does the Face ID thing. We'll just say that we can. Danny says, "That's you, Ed." And Ed says, "The hell it is." And then Ed shoots the camera. He shoots the camera. Why would Ed shoot the camera? Would he? Huh. We cut back to the casino. We see some people having a beer chugging contest. We see a man trying to use his belt buckle as collateral on the table. It's 14 karat, don't you know? It doesn't happen. Nessa tries to wrangle Brooks and Dunn off of the craps table. As they do that, we have the musical cue. In the original, the song is My Maria, obviously, by Brooks and Dunn. It's also the song on the Amazon and Peacock version. They went back and put, or they just didn't put anything over it, is what probably happened. They probably just didn't replace it. On the DVD version, the song is Second Chance by that famous musical group that you love, Universal Production Music. It has a slot on YouTube. You can go and listen to it. It's all right. Nessa tries to get Brooks and Dunn to the show because...
$1,000 Come on.
And 10 grand on the seat.
Hey, it's an hour before your show. What
Nessa,
You've got to find Mary.
Never seen a roll like this.
This is unbelievable. Check it out, huh?
Great.
There you go.
Watch this.
Look,
Give me one of those too.
I'll make sure your chips are
What he
stacked and
said.
packed, but you better go. You've been here 24 hours.
But they've been there literally for a full day. They have to do a sound check.
Don't you have a sound check?
Yeah, right, whatever.
I got your sound check.
Marie!
How's that for sound check?
And that is why I have been singing My Maria for the last week. I'm doing this episode. That has been the song that has, because really every time, because I always watch this on the DVD. So I never heard all the songs, all the actual Brooks and Dunn songs that got yanked out of the DVD version. The only Brooks and Dunn song I heard off of the DVD was the one that we get to at the end, and I love that version. I love that song, but I've never heard all the other ones. So in watching this and in finding the original version, I've been singing My Maria a lot. I sang it today on the way to work. It's great. It's not my favorite song, but when we get to the chorus is great. The chorus of My Maria is fantastic. I've been doing that all day. I've been yodeling all week. Nessa tries to get them together, but they say,
guys.
Sound checks for sissies, ladies and gentlemen. We throwing dice here.
Come on.
Come on. Get it, baby. 6 to 1.
And yeah, why not? Because they win again, and the celebration is fantastic. Again, they're so natural. And everybody in the casino loves them, including the crew of the casino. They're so natural, but they have to do it. They're slated to play at the Montecito. They've got to do it. So they pack the chips up, they tip the dealers, and they're on their way. Danny is in a tizzy because the vault's been cleaned out. Ed is over in the corner by the facial recognition thing, and he's trying to break down exactly what happened. We hear Danny talk about the $50 million that was in the vault. The $50 million that was in the vault today translates to $85,222,462.20. That's still, either way, a lot of money. But as we're doing it, we see that Ed recognizes the quote-unquote Somali chieftain mask, and the slots that came out of the chieftain mask just happen to match up perfectly with the facial ID. Did you catch that? Did you see that? Did you catch that? All the dots on the thing just happen, and they overlay onto the chieftain mask, and then you see a latex version of Big Ed's face. Now, in 2004, and around that time, latex masks weren't that good. I didn't believe that at all, and I didn't believe that Big Ed mask when it fell into the crate. It didn't look like James Caan to me. Since then, the technology has gotten way better. So if they tried to pull that off now, they probably could. And it will probably look almost as good than the real thing. As this is happening, Ed calls Jack and tells him that the vault's been cleaned out and they need Jack back. As they're doing that, you can see Brooks and Dunn doing their concert on the screens behind all the boys in the surveillance room. They're tracking the call, and they can tell that Jack's car isn't moving. And Jack knows he's been nicked. Or at least that they're on to him. And he says that...
Yeah, I didn't know how long it would take you to put all the pieces together, but you're hours ahead of where I thought you'd be by now.
You could see the respect between the two of them, even though Jack tried to steal $50 million from Ed's casino. He knew that Ed would be too in his own head and involved in himself to see everything that was happening. But what he didn't know was that Ed knew about him too.
I read a little too. And I read your file. And it said, whether you topple governments or kill 10 people, you never leave the job empty-handed.
Ed checked the files on Jack too, and he knew that Jack always left with something. And he tells Jack, if I were me and I stole from me, I would check everything that I stole. And as soon as he says that, Jack stops the truck from closing and he opens it and he sees all the wads of cash in there, and it's all fake. It's fake money. it's just paper. And it's boxes and boxes of nothing. Now, Dangler, who's been there the whole time, by the way, because Dangler was helping to pull off this thing. He's the one that helped load the boxes into the trucks because he's working with Jack to try, in case you didn't know, to try to knock off the casino. He doesn't see any of this. It's all Jack and Ed. And so Jack and Ed have a heartwarming moment between the two of them. Meanwhile, the real money is going back into the vault as Danny and Mike look on completely flabbergasted because they didn't know any of that was going down. Ed and Jack share a moment between two friends. And this was an interesting bit from the DVD commentary. James Caan said that the original slot for this episode, the original ending for this episode was Jack gets caught, the end. Happy ending, the end. But James Caan came to GST and he talked to him about the difference between the laws of God versus the laws of man. And in this instance, I felt like the laws of God should prevail over the laws of man. Because with the laws of man, ideally, not even ideally, legally, I have to turn him in. I have to try to stop him and get him in a jail cell somewhere, right? But all the times that Jack probably saved my life out in the field when we were out there toppling governments, the laws of God prevail over the laws of man. Karmically, I owe it to him. And so, in this instance, as Jack is asking Ed one last time,
Eddie, you sure you don't want to come with me?
Jack, just run, you son of a bitch. Run as fast as you can, okay?
Jack is sitting there contemplating it. Dangler doesn't know anything's wrong. Jack says, yeah, lock it up. It's all good to go. And we see Carla Marin, and she kisses Jack on the lips. And they take off in a helicopter. Now, this helicopter shot right here, they had to do it in one take. They only had the one take to do it. And as they were getting onto the helicopter, GST says that he was worried that something might happen to Alec Baldwin. They were looking at it and it was like, oh my gosh, we're going to kill Alec Baldwin. Can you imagine if something terrible happened with Alec Baldwin on the set of a production he was involved in? So Jack and Carla escape in the helicopter and they get away. And it's a great shot. It's a great scene. They only had one take, so they had to get it from a whole bunch of different angles. And as the chopper rises, in come the police cars, and they stop the Portland Dangler. Now, the Dangler, he's caught. There's nothing Dangler can do. Dangler's done. And we fly over and into the light of the Luxor and into the Belisara. And again, every member of the Montecito crew knows and loves Brooks and Dunn because here comes Ed down to talk to Brooks and Dunn in the Belisara and share a shot with them before he has to go back up to work. And the entire crew is coming back. Sam is there. Danny is there. Here comes Mary to meet with Brooks and Dunn and everyone. Delinda, Nessa's there. And this is great. Again, I love these guys. This is a trope where the guest star just happens to know everybody and love and be a part of the crew. But they felt like they were part of the crew. I'm actually shocked that Brooks and Dunn never came back for another episode because they felt so natural here. And this sort of intimate setting for the musical guest stars sort of set the pace for other guest stars who also, when they got on, they wanted to do something like this where they were with the rest of the gang. They didn't want to just get up there and play songs. They wanted to do something like this, and I can understand why, because this is terrific.
You know what? Hey, would you guys mind if we borrowed a guitar? Be okay?
Steal his hat.
I ought to do something for these girls. Mary missed the show. She's made us
we
rich.
got to say something for Lady Luck here.
That's right.
Delinda DeLine. You too, Nessa.
This is my favorite Brooks and Dunn song because it's the Brooks and Dunn song I've heard the most, courtesy of the DVD. And this version of it got a ton of requests from fans who wanted to hear it and wanted Brooks and Dunn to record a version of this. And they did. They did for AOL Sessions in 2004, and you can find it on YouTube. They did an acoustic-ish version of the song like this, and the song is great. However version you're going to hear, the song is great. And you get to see Mary over in the background, just kind of cuddled up into herself as they sing the song, and Sam looks at Danny, and it feels like this song does kind of speak to Sam and Danny. It also sounds like it speaks to Mary and Danny, for being perfectly honest. It really does sound like it speaks to Mary on the surface. But Sam is still, as tough as nails as she is, Danny has opened the shell. Danny's opened the shell. And Sam she's really smitten. The look that she gives Danny.
I want to take you somewhere. Not gonna ask you again.
All the little things.
Mary she sees it. It registers, but she's not heartbroken. She's gonna sit there and she's gonna enjoy the mini concert that she's a great part of. And we get to see, we linger on Mary for a bit. That's just such a sweet, sweet shot of Mary / Nikki Cox. And we get to see a contemplative look as Ed is heartbroken himself over losing his friend the way that he did.
That's what she gets. That's what she gets. That's what she gets for loving me. Sometimes I lay awake at night, stare at her laying by my side, staring there in her heart as she sleeps.
Sam and Danny are in a park. And in this scene, it opens with Danny saying, "Why didn't I know about this place?" Which is weird because Danny, I thought he knew everything. They talk about where Sam grew up, and Danny suggests it was Phoenix or Tucson. Interesting guesses, Danny. Interesting guess. Vanessa, by the way, she was born in Indio, California. But Danny thinks that Sam was from Tucson or Phoenix. That is very, very interesting. Very interesting guesses. She's not going to give up the secrets. It was very interesting guesses. This shot, by the way, was not at a park. This was in a parking lot. They fixed the parking lot up right outside the studio, and this is where this comes from. Now, James Caan, he said when he read the script or he saw the scene, he said that he came to Gary Scott Thompson and he asked vehemently, please, 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 please don't let them make love. Please, please. Because I think James Caan was kind of getting sick of Danny being the sexiest man of all the sexiest men in the sexiest towns. Of all the sexiest towns, the irresistible Daniel McCoy. He was a little sick of that trope playing out. But here's the thing about that, though. Danny fits well in different ways with all of them. He fits well in. I could see Danny. I could see Danny with Nessa for a minute. I could see Danny with. I of course can see him with Mary. I can see him with Delinda. Not long term, but I can see him with Delinda. I actually, of the four, of the leftover three, other than Mary, who I really actually here's the thing, Sham shippers. I'm kind of a little bit tempted to say I kind of wanted to see Sam and Danny at least for like half a season. At least for like a cluster of episodes. Just because their dynamic is interesting. I think it would have added... Now, mind you, it would have broken down the tough exterior of Sam, I think, a little bit. I think the natural inclination is to do that as a writer. But I think the dichotomy between the kind... it's kind of reminiscent of Jackie and Kelso from that 70s show. Jackie's smaller, bossy, tough, abusive. Kelso, big, goofy, definitely goofy. Kelso's dumb. Kelso was dumb. Danny isn't dumb. He's definitely goofy, but he's not dumb. He doesn't always do the smartest thing, but he's not dumb. I would classify Danny as dumb, but that's probably the closest dynamic. And I think for the tone of this show, it would have been interesting to see what Danny brings out in Sam and what Sam brings out in Danny. Maybe toughen him up a little bit. So I can see what you're talking about. I can see what the sham shippers are talking about. But she's not giving away where she grew up. But she is going to say...
I unpacked my bags.
Wow. That's big. That's big. And then a shooting star passes. As we continue to hear, that's what she gets for loving me. And they are laying on the grass, watching the stars, just as sweet as can be. Again, I kind of wanted to see. I would be okay with seeing where those two went as a couple. They didn't do it, but I would be okay with seeing where those two went as a couple. But that's not what we ended up getting. We ended up getting this tremendous episode of Las Vegas. They did so much. They covered so much in such a... And it felt... This felt... A lot of other episodes where they cover a lot of stuff feels fast. Like, oh my gosh, they're going through so much so fast. This felt like a full meal. This felt like a full, ironically enough, Thanksgiving meal. Hearty helpings of everything. We got backstories on two of the most mysterious characters, maybe the two most mysterious characters on the show, in Sam and Ed. We got to see two tremendously talented professional actors bouncing off each other just as a performer. That's amazing to see. That's just phenomenal to see the back and forth between James Caan and Alec Baldwin. We got to see all the members of the crew. We got to see Brooks and Dunn, and Brooks and Dunn were really good. They were really good on this episode. I'm shocked that we never saw them again. I'm shocked because they felt so natural. It was one of those guest starring things. I talked about how Las Vegas feels a lot like The Love Boat. This is one of those things where you get these characters that I talked about before. It just felt good, and you could feel the party atmosphere around it. I gotta again give credit to Timothy Busfield for the economy of space and using using as much space as he could with what he had to work with. And again, the relationship between Sam and Danny is not going to be the same going forward from this episode. But this episode is it's a glimpse at possibly what could have been between them. Again, we get to see not the details of Sam's backstory, but we get more into Sam's foundation. Not even necessarily her backstory, but her foundation as a character, which is really good. But I understand why they didn't do it, and that is a lot, obviously, just in one season with Danny and all the women. Though we're still talking about the early 2000s, so that's not unusual. And Josh Duhamel, for crying out loud, I'm sure we had it thrown at him as he walked the streets, especially being on a soap opera for as long as he was beforehand. But I would have liked to have seen them at least attempt something with this. Even if not immediately here. Right? Even if they just decided they were going to do it a season or two later, I don't know. Maybe just an episode. I don't know. There's not nothing there, and maybe it's just, and maybe it's not even necessarily about Danny. Maybe it is more about Sam and her evolution as a person, and her evolution from just being one-dimensional, tough as nails, because she had to be, as we will learn in later episodes. Maybe it's more about Sam than Sam and Danny, but Sam and Danny is not something that I would have hated. That's a perfect place to leave it. How did you like this episode? Hellraisers and Heartbreakers. Fantastic episode as far as I'm concerned. And getting to see the original version with the original music. I'm a Brooks and Dunn fan now. Like, I always liked country music, but they're great. Like, I'm not gonna give, because that would probably break the audio, and the audio's already broken enough, which you can help support we can get better equipment and stuff with the Patreon and the Buy Me a Coffees and all that other stuff. But I've talked enough about Hellraisers and Heartbreakers. We are next episode going to get into episode 13, and that episode is The Night the Lights Went Out in Vegas. Oh, have you gotten enough Sam yet? No, you haven't, because this next episode is Sam-tacular. This is Samantha Jane Marquez's coming out party. This is Vanessa Marcil's coming out party as an actress. It's a bottle episode. We will talk about what a bottle episode is. They use very little scenery, but what scenery they do use is chewed entirely up by Miss One Vanessa Thaddeus Marcil. Everybody gets Thaddeus. One Vanessa Marcil. She is acting it up. It is a great episode. I can't wait to talk about it, and I can't wait to talk about it with you. Tell me what you think about this episode. Write reviews. Share. And I can't wait to see you back here next week on the Podecito for The Night the Lights Went Out in Vegas. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be great. In the meantime, the in-between time, please, as always, take care. And don't overthink it.
No guilt, no shame, no bitterness.